NBA fans, welcome back to my channel, Jordan vs. LeBron. Okay, people, today we're going to talk about the 90s was watered down with expansion. And I guess Michael Jordan's championships don't count. He was playing nobody. I mean, I thought the 90s, to me, was the most athletic era of all time, right? I mean, you had guys like Shaq. He was in his most athletic peak of all time in the 90s. And if you missed that, you'll never see nothing like that again. A guy that was 300 pounds running the court the way Shaq did. That's what? You had Hakeem, you had Ewing, you had Jordan, you had Pippen, you had all these great guys in the 90s. You had even guys come in late, like Kobe, like Allen Iverson, Chris Mullin was in there, Mitch Richmond. Who was the other guy? Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, Steve Nash even played in the late 90s. Ben Wallace played in the late 90s. I think, did I mention Steve Nash? Um, it was just some guys in there. Larry Bird even played. I think a couple years. Isaiah Thomas, he played like 4 years. They won a championship, so I guess their championships don't count. Dennis Rodman played in the 90s. Clyde Drexler, Karl Malone, John Stockton. You had Charles Barkley. I mean, just aside from, people like Dominique Wilkins, Glenn Rice, Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill. I mean, wow. It's just so many guys that played in the 90s. It's embarrassing to say that era was watered down with players. I'm talking about, you had some guys that should be Hall of Famers like Sean Kemp. You got Gary Payton was there. Def Left Shrimp was a great player. I mean, the list just goes on and on. John Starks was real athletic. Um, Look, we'll be here for the next hour trying to name a lot of guys who never made the Hall of Fame that could have been Hall of Famers. And a lot of great athletes that played in the 90s. The 90s, when you talk about big men alone, was the most athletic era of all time. Ross Strickland, you had guys like that. Um, what's this guy? D. Brown was crazy athletic. I mean, what do they call him? Baby Jordan, Harold Miner, J.R. Ryder, Kevin Garnett was in the 90s. I'm talking about. And Jordan was winning with all these guys in the 90s. And even the guys that I mentioned that came in late in the 90s, the old Bulls teams was winning when these guys was in the league. So when we talk about Jordan didn't play nobody, he played these guys. I'm talking about, yeah, sure, there wasn't stacked super teams. Okay, but isn't that why LeBron left and went to Cleveland? Because he didn't have a stacked super team? And that's for another video, but the teams were pretty much balanced and even in those times. Yes, Pippen was a great player. He wasn't a great scorer. I'm trying to tell you, he was a great defender, but Pippen was not a great scorer. He probably gets you 20 a night at his peak. Other than that, he basically getting you like 16 a night and stuff like that. Truthfully, at their peak, I'm taking Sean Kemp. I'm taking Sean Kemp over Scottie Pippen any day at their peak. You know what I'm saying? The only difference is Sean Kemp wasn't disciplined enough to do what he had to do. And Terry Porter, he probably should have made the Hall of Fame if he, I don't know what happened to that guy. They had went to the finals before the Bulls even went to the finals. So that was a good team. Buck Williams, he should have made the Hall of Fame. They had a lot of good players. I don't know what happened to that Portland team after Jordan shattered their dreams, but they just fell apart. It might have been the grind from playing in the West. That West was really tough. Um, so yeah, and Magic played in the 90s. He played 90, 91, and that's pretty much it. So he was in there, and I can't think of. I want to think of somebody else. There's many more guys too that I can't remember, but like I said, we'll be there all day. So if you think the 90's was watered down, and I think to me it was the most athletic of all time, the 90's. When I just talked about these players, they were just way more athletic than the dudes in the 80's. I think the 80's were more skilled as far as like, because they weren't so athletic, they played more as a team. Okay, they executed the X's and O's. That really doesn't exist today. All these guys today would be benched the way they play. They just hoist up shots. There's no bad shot in today's game. I mean, why do they even have coaches? You're telling me you paying these guys millions of dollars for what? There's no defense. There's no bad shots today. So why do you even have coaches? The way these guys play today, it would drive an elementary school coach crazy. Okay, yeah, they're scoring a lot or whatever like that, but that's because there's no defense. Okay, why do you even have referees? There's no defense. There's no, when I say X's and O's, there's really no pick and rolls. There's no trapping. There's no like low post moves. Nothing like that. There's no mid range. It's just 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 and drive. 3, 3, 3, 3 and drive. They did everything when I was young. Shoot the three, shoot the mid range, did traps, did pick and rolls, post moves, shot good free throws, everything like that. I see a lot of people trying to I forget this woman's name, Kimbe Bukake, whatever her name is. I don't even know why she's on the NBA Game Time or whatever that thing is on ESPN. But she said the big men today are more skilled than past eras. That's why their line of like 30, 10, and 9 is better than the big man of the past. And I'm like, you don't even have any big men. You got Joel Embiid, he's always hurt, and you got Joker. That's it. Versus David Robinson, he would just shut both of them guys down just on defense. This guy was an athletic freak. Okay, Keem Olajuwon, you had Shaq back in the 90's. Alonzo Mourning was a pretty good player. He would be better in today's era with no defense. You have players like that. Patrick Ewing, he would be even better in this era with no defense. Dikembe Mutombo probably would give you about 25 in this era. And he would be having like 20 blocks a game. So they're not more skilled today. There's just no defense today. I mean, if you try to defend a big man today and you touch him, that's a fact. Shaq would be scoring 50 a game in today's era. I mean, it would just be embarrassing what Shaq would be doing in today's era if you couldn't touch Shaq. What? I mean, they would put arm guards and elbows all on this dude, and he was still doing this thing. He was still scoring 30 a game and stuff like that. So the fact that these people on ESPN, Fox Sports, and these type of people like that, they have to straight lie to sell this era because it's not selling. It's not selling itself based on play. So let's look at this. So LeBron's competition. So we're going to start here because a lot of people like to say the 90's when Jordan started winning, everything else doesn't count. So we're going to look at when LeBron started winning, when he went to Miami in his super team in from 2011, 2014. You got in the East, you got Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, And Ray Allen should be in here because he's a top 75 player. So that was his only competition. And if these guys were so good, they only won the East, the conference one time, and they were together like 5 years. And LeBron had the number one seed with no Hall of Fame. Well, he had a Hall of Fame player, but no top 75 players, and won back-to-back MVPs. You trying to tell me these three guys couldn't win the MVP on that big three team of the Celtics? But they try to say it's better than the Larry Bird Celtics that won three titles, and Larry Bird won three MVP. So I really don't know what these guys are talking about. Larry Bird won like 6 conference titles in the 80s. I mean, these guys only won one. So let's look at LeBron's West competition. Or look at the West. You had Shaq, Carmelo Anthony, Dame Lillard, Chris Paul, James Harden, Westbrook, Curry, Kawhi, AD, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Kobe. Who is that? Dirk Nowitzki, and KD. So let's look at when LeBron had a super team in Cleveland. Let's look at this from 2015 to 18. The top 75 players, you got Giannis, Melo, and you got Wade. Let's look at the West. You have Harden, Dame Lillard, Kawhi, Chris Paul, was that Westbrook, KD, Curry, and AD. So, I mean, what? You're trying to tell me that Jordan's competition was watered down in the East, but LeBron's competition wasn't watered down? So let's be real and talk about what really happened. The 90's East, it was weaker than the 80's. Okay, no doubt about that. In LeBron's East competition, when he started winning in Miami until he played in Cleveland, it was weak too. But you know the difference is Jordan beat the West and LeBron didn't. And if you don't believe me how dominant the West really was when Jordan was playing, so Jordan wins 3 straight championships, right? His first three-peat. He retires, and the West wins back-to-back championships. He comes back, he wins 3 straight championships. He retires again in 98, and guess what? The West won, 4 straight championships. So, I mean, y'all got to stop with the nonsense right here. The fact is, LeBron couldn't get the job done, okay, because of his skill set. And he needs all these number one options of other teams, franchise players, to make up for his lack of skill set, okay? That's what LeBron needs. And he found this out when he was in Cleveland, and he kept pooping himself against the Magic and the Celtics in 09 and 2010. So he found that out real fast, that he just didn't need one free agent because he had Ben Wallace there one year. He had Shaq there. He needed at least 2 great players that was number one options on other teams to make up for his nonsense. So tell me what you think.